Today's the day. Baseball is back. We actually have a real game. Well, a spring training game. Closest we're going to get until opening day. Let's talk about the Cubs rotation today. I think the top four, unless something happens injury-wise, are set. But then that fifth spot is up for grabs. Let's talk about that right here on the Cubs Baseball channel. Make sure you guys like and follow. Give us a thumbs up. That's a great way of saying go Cubs. It's a big day. Anytime we start playing baseball for the first time since September, or really October, is a big day. Let's get this thing started. Welcome to the Cubs Baseball channel, and great to have all of you guys here as we talk about the Cubs. And we got a lot to talk about right now because today is the day that the season starts, the spring training season. But we have a real baseball game that we can talk about tomorrow. But today I wanted to talk about the starting rotation as it sits as of today. Well, you started with this guy here, Justin Steele. A Cy Young caliber campaign last year. 16-5. The left-hander had a 3.06 ERA. This is a guy that came out of nowhere. I think everyone thought, hey, he's got the potential to be a big leaguer. He could be pretty good. But no one saw this coming. And if they tell you they did, they're lying to you. He dealt with injury issues in the minor leagues. He never really got going. Then COVID. And then all of a sudden, John Lester, another great left-hander, watching him on film, on video, I guess on TV, he's like, hey, do this and this. And he's programmed Steele. And all of a sudden now Steele is almost like a replica, I guess. Maybe not quite, but you know what I mean. Except he can throw to first base. He was the biggest surprise on the team last year. And we're hoping that he's able to continue that. But besides the fact that he's a left-hander that can move the ball up and down the zone, he's great at the backdoor pitches, changing speeds, getting outs. He's a great guy. And I've said that on here a ton, and I'm going to say it again. He's just the kind of teammate that you would want to play with. Very intelligent, big-time baseball fan. He comes from a city that is a Cubs city in the middle of Mississippi, really the south of Mississippi, right? But Claude Passo is from there, part of the Cubs World Series team in the 40s. I think the 45 team, one of their best pitchers. And he grew up around that. Everybody talking about the Cubs. So he's a Cub, and hopefully for the Cubs this year, he's able to continue what he did a year ago. And that's going to be tough. I mean, you just don't have 16-5, 3.06 ERA seasons in the big leagues back to back unless you are legitimately one of the best players. So that's what he's looking at this year. Not only trying to lead the Cubs to the postseason, but to establish the fact that he's one of the best pitchers in baseball. And last year wasn't a fluke. Now, second, we're going to talk about Jameson Taillon. Taillon was traded, as you guys know, or signed by the Cubs. It was like a former Yankee and I think it's maybe Pirate. And last year, 8-10 and a 4.84 ERA. The second part of the season really was good. Not great, but you can't say it was bad, and it was above average. So it was good. The beginning of the season wasn't good. The biggest thing to me with Taillon is consistency, because I never feel like I'm going to know what to expect that night. When you think he's going to pitch well, he doesn't. When you think he's going to be bad, he's great, like he did at Yankee Stadium. You're expecting him to just get ripped, and he was fantastic. What you want is more consistency out of Taillon. I got Steele as the number one, and I got Taillon as the number two. As we sit right now before a game's been played, this is my rotation, okay? Number three on my rotation is Shota Imanaga. Yeah, the guy's never pitched a game in the major leagues, which is kind of crazy when I'm thinking that he's going to be the number 3 guy. But left-hander, comes from Japan. What we've found out is that the Japanese guys seem to come to the United States now, and they hold their own. I think it's great to have the Japanese culture in the clubhouse. We've talked about that before. There's a respect that they have for the game that translates. There's a competitiveness that those guys play with that's great to have in the locker room. The Dodgers saw that, obviously. They went out and signed, 2 of the best, Yamamoto and Ohtani. But the Cubs have 2 of the best as well. Imanaga may be better than Yamamoto today. Yamamoto's younger and has more time to grow. But Imanaga's ready to come in and be a great pitcher. And we saw what Suzuki could do last year. And I'm thinking that he comes in ready to go. So these are 2 players that I think are going to make a difference. And I think that Imanaga slides right into that number 3 spot. And that gives the Cubs Steele, Taillon, and Imanaga. Now, number 4 is another one that I feel like is an easy pick. And maybe you could even move him up in the rotation somewhere different. But I'm talking about the professor, Kyle Hendricks. I've known Kyle since he was a minor leaguer. Love him. I think he still is building a resume to be a Cubs Hall of Famer, one of the all-time great Cubs pitchers. Last year, came back from the shoulder issue, a 6-8 record, and a 3.74 ERA. He does everything that the analytics guys hate. He doesn't overpower people with velo, basically with speed. He gets you out on what's up here, moving the ball around in the zone. Now, he can spin it, changes the speeds of the baseball. Last year, did not have the velocity that we saw when he was the guy who was either leading or close to leading the National League in ERA. He comes back. If he gets the ball over 90 miles an hour consistently, say he sits at 91, he's going to be one of the best pitchers in baseball because he doesn't need velo to get outs. He's able to cut it, move it. He sets guys up. He knows the hitters. But when you give that weapon to him, which we've seen him have in his career, all of a sudden he becomes just that much better. So I'm curious to see where he is. Last year, his fastball was in the 80s. I'm hoping that thing gets into about 90, 91, 92 this year, just because it makes the changeup so much better and his ability to change speeds. But he's the only guy left from the 2016 World Series team if Carl Edwards Jr., CJ, doesn't make the roster. So think about that. The last guy, and he's the only guy that's continuously been on the team since then until now. So the most intriguing part of this rotation now is who is going to be the number 5 starter. And that's a good question. Is it going to be this guy here, Jordan Wicks? 4-1 last year, came up towards the end of the season. Cubs needed him to be big, and he was at a 441 earned run average. He's a left-hander, as you guys know, that has a killer changeup. He's going to have the experience of pitching in the big leagues. He's a guy that you look at and you go, you know what? He could potentially be a really, really good player. I mean, I'm talking about 20-game winner type stuff. But it's all about continuing the progress that he had last year. And in a way, he was even better in the major leagues than he was in the minor leagues. I think part of that is taking the shackles off. The minor league Cubs are very restricted with the amount of innings that they're allowed to throw. You get to the big leagues, they try to keep that as well, but it's all about winning. It's not about keeping guys healthy. I mean, that's what you're there for. So keep an eye on him. Another guy to keep an eye on is Javier Assad. I feel like Javier Assad is so underappreciated. He's a right-hander who gets outs, and he's not, and analytics people aren't looking at him going, hey, this guy's our guy. He's not veloing it in the spin rate. He just knows how to pitch. 5-3 last year. He was an excellent swing man for the Cubs. If they needed him in the start, he was there. If they needed him in the bullpen, he was there. And honestly, I wish that the Cubs would have just kept him in the rotation and kept Marcus Stroman in the bullpen. Just me. And I said that last year, and I'll say that again. But Assad is definitely in the conversation for a spot in this rotation going into camp. Another guy you got to talk about is Hayden Wisneski. Wisneski came over from the Yankees in a trade, and it just feels like Wisneski is on the cusp of being good. 3-5 record, 4.63 ERA, kind of a shuttle player from AAA to the big leagues. You see some good stuff with him, nothing consistent, but everyone told us that he was a star, that this guy had the makings of something great. It's time to put that together at the big league level. He's going to get a shot in spring training. Could be in the Cubs bullpen, could be in the starting rotation. If he had a great spring, it would not surprise me if he wasn't the number 5 guy. Last guy I want to talk about is Drew Smyly. What a season a year ago for Drew Smyly. I mean, we were watching him almost throw a perfect game. Then we were watching him get tore up and knocked out of the Cubs starting rotation. Then we watched him go into the bullpen and become a pretty reliable reliever. It's hard to really quantitate what we're going to get out of Drew Smyly. But I'm not giving up on him, and I don't think you guys are either. You wonder what it was with him that went from being really good to really bad to consistent. Could it have been injuries? Was it, maybe something messed up with his delivery? I don't know. And we'll probably never know because they're not going to say, hey, I was hurt. My arm hurt. If you could get the first half Drew Smyly for an entire season, you'd have a damn good pitcher. And I think that's what the Cubs are hoping. But if not, we saw him in the bullpen, and he was a reliable pitcher for the Cubs out of the bullpen. So that's when we're going into spring training today. Those are the guys that I feel like are, battling for the starting rotation. Now, there's a couple guys I didn't bring up, and I'm going to start with Ben Brown, who was in AAA last year, hard-throwing right-hander, got him from the Phillies. Don't sleep on Chris Clark. Now, Chris Clark is a lot like Javier Assad. I don't know necessarily that he is what you would deem a prospect, but at the same time, he's a really good pitcher, and if you give him a chance, he might just prove everyone wrong that doesn't think he's a major leaguer. And he may end up being one of those guys that's in a starting rotation for a long time. You're going to see him in camp. And then, of course, Cade Horton, kind of the opposite of Clark. You're talking about a premier, top-of-the-line, blue-chip prospect. And I think he's the Cubs' best pitching prospect in the last 20 years. I think he's the best Cubs pitching prospect since Pryor and Wood. Let that sink in. And if Mully wants to argue with me about that, hey, I'll come on his show and say it. But I'm telling you, this guy has the fastball. He's got the hammer slider. And he's a guy that you're going to have to pay attention to. For him, it's all about staying healthy. Forget about the MLB pipeline and all of that stuff, prospect listings. I'm just telling you right now, what makes him special is he's got great stuff and he's mean. You get up on that plate and he doesn't want you there, he's going to back you off. Pitches inside. Pitches like he's got an attitude, just like Pryor and Wood. He's got the stuff, but at the same time, he's just got that mentality that he's mean, it's his plate, and he's going to take it over. I'm excited about seeing what he does when he gets that opportunity at spring training this year, and that's Cade Horton. All right, guys, thanks for hanging out with us on the Cubs Baseball channel. Make sure that you guys like and subscribe. Appreciate all of you guys for hanging out. I can't believe baseball is finally back again. Get in the comment section and tell me what you think about the starting rotation or the fact that we're having a real game. We're going to get to watch baseball today. I want to remind you, too, that we're brought to you by the Tennessee Smokies team store, smokiesbaseball.com/store. Get in there right now and pick up some gear. Freshen up for the 2024 season. Thanks for hanging out, guys, and we will talk to you again tomorrow, unless something breaks, and we'll talk to you then.